Okay, I have to make this a quick one because my kids are home from school today and I didn't realize that they didn't have school today until I got an email last night. I should be more like on the ball and print out their schedules and know when their days off, but pretty much I know like when Christmas break is, fall break, spring break, that's about it. All these weird days off, I just can't follow and I always forget. So quick video. I want you to ask yourself a question. If eating feels complicated to you, why do you think that might be? Why is eating in recovery feeling so complicated? I have a really good guess, and it's because you're still very much restricting food. You're still very much following all of your eating disorder rules and behaviors, and you got this idea set in your head of how much you can eat. My guess is before you started recovery though, food actually didn't feel that complicated. It didn't feel that overwhelming because why? Because you were actively listening to your eating disorder. Everybody that's had an eating disorder for even a month or so already has this very rigid routine in which they follow, right? And every single day needs to feel the same or very similar, or if they're eating different foods, and the amount of that food that they're exchanging from the day prior needs to be exactly the same calorie content. And so you kind of get it down, right? Because your brain wants to kind of just like be lazy essentially. And so once you get into this restrictive mindset, you figure out a restrictive way of living that just feels effortless, right? And so you don't feel like before you enter recovery, things are that complicated. It's not that overwhelming. And then you start recovery and you're like, oh my gosh, food feels so, trying to decide what I'm going to eat. My brain's going to explode. I don't know. I can't decide. And it just feels like too much. And my one piece of advice to help you with this, and I can tell you this and you can be like, oh, that makes sense, or oh, that's nice. Maybe I'll tell myself that and it'll change. It won't. You got to actually do this thing I'm about to tell you to do. You have to treat food like it is abundant. There is a never-ending supply of food, and there is a no amount is too much rule where you can eat so much food and any kind of food that you want. Essentially, you're just like just destroying all of your eating disorder rules. And you're teaching yourself constantly every second of the day that food is abundant. So when you're in a scenario where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm really stressed right now. I'm in class is about to get out. I am having raging mental hunger. If I eat right now, people are gonna see me and it's gonna feel uncomfortable. And if I just wait until I get home and be able to enjoy it, and I'm gonna have what I really want, and I'm gonna do that because I don't wanna mess that up. I don't wanna eat now and then feel like I can't eat when I get home. Do you see the eating disorder in that logic? Do you see how that's a huge problem? That is not a recovery mindset. That's not somebody who's committed to recovery. That's a passive kind of autopilot default eating disorder, pattern of thinking. And so if you're that person that's like, oh yeah, I fall into that trap a lot, where it's like, ooh, I feel like there's an either or here. I have to either eat in class and not enjoy it and not really have what I want, and then suffer after class and not get to go home and eat what I really wanted. Or if I'm a good girl, quotes, big, huge quotes, good girl or boy, and I don't eat in class, then I get to get home and I get to enjoy that meal and I have no distractions. Well, guess what you just did? You just reinforced that food is on a pedestal for you, and food has to be perfect. And food is, something that is scarce because you can't possibly do both. That would be too much, right? But when you wipe that out and you're like, you know what? I'm going to prove to my brain that food is abundant. So when I'm in class next and I think I want to eat, I'm going to grab that candy bar and I'm going to eat it. And then I'm going to look forward to it. And I'm going to be excited and can't wait till I get home to have that huge meal that I was planning on eating, without any distractions that I was going to enjoy. And I'm going to enjoy it just as much. I'm going to force myself to even have more than I was planning on eating, just to prove to my eating disorder that has no control over me. And that just because I have that candy bar doesn't mean I can have more now. Because if you're being honest with yourself, at the end of the day, you want all that food. You want to eat in class. You want to eat on your way home from class. You want to eat as you're making your lunch. You want to eat lunch. You want to have dessert. You want to have another meal. Like, I understand what that hunger feels like. I've had it before. I experienced it when I was in recovery. And I know that the only reason that I was able to recover and to get my mental hunger back to a place that felt normal and to get my brain free from all of my eating disorder rules was by acting like food was abundant. And when you start to do that, you can experiment with this. It will be amazing how much less stressful and overcomplicated and overwhelming it is to just eat. All of a sudden you're in the kitchen and you're like, I don't know, do I want that or that or that? And you're like, oh, ding, 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 food's abundant. I can have all of it. I can have all of it. And you get kind of excited, but also kind of anxious at the same time. And that's totally fine and to be expected. And then you start and you just go and you're like, and I'm having this and I'm having this and I'm having this. And that is when your brain changes. And that's when your brain registers that food's abundant. And that's when mental hunger can start eventually, slowly coming back down to a level that feels a little bit more normal. Okay? But none of that's going to happen until you start behaving like food's abundant. because you can listen to videos all day long and people telling you that it's abundant, and you can tell yourself food's abundant, I can always have it, it's always there. But if you're not actually always eating it and eating all the food that you want, your brain's not going to catch on. So that's my message to you going into the weekend. Get yourself to the store, the restaurant, wherever you are. Get as much food as you can in your arms, in your cart. Go home and just start food in your mouth. Food's abundant, food's abundant, food's abundant, food's abundant. Your brain's going to settle down, I promise you. Not overnight, not in a matter of weeks, but in a matter of months, maybe a year. It will eventually figure out, you know what, this human is feeding me a lot of really good food. I feel safe, I feel secure, I feel like I'm not obsessing over food like I used to. Okay, so go experiment with that and see if that doesn't change. I'd be interested to know if eating feels a lot less complicated by doing that. All right.